Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
Is there an FBI trap for the blabbermouth? For the man who wants to be nice, wants to get along with the two agents who are at his door and who ask to come in, and they also want to know if they might have a little bit of his time to ask him a few questions. It's a very important matter, and his cooperation is strongly suggested. They had left a business card at his door a few days before, and now want to collect on an interview that he is suddenly fearful about. He doesn't know why he's afraid. He's done nothing wrong. He is connected with no criminal, no member of the mob, no party involved in defrauding a company. He's not connected with any Muslim group. Has not been to terrorist websites in the Mideast or anything of the kind. He is not connected with anybody who cares about the Constitution. He's not connected with anybody who's strongly pro-life or involved in home education. And so the man at the door there, his hand still on the knob, thinking he might close that door, says, "Well, okay, I'm kind of in the middle of something, but okay, come on in." So this is what happens when he gives his interview. He is a blabbermouth, and he is talking about some posts he's been making about a controversial issue, and the FBI is concerned about him. They're concerned about what he's been saying. And he is, as it turns out, an advocate of free speech, not just free speech of his own kind, but really the kind of that you might find among any political circle, any religious circle. In fact, he is a supporter of the American Civil Liberties Union. And now he is going to be asked some questions. Well, there's a trap. There is a trap, and it's called the FBI Form 302. Form 302, which has been unchanged more or less since the 1950s. It's a 60-year-old form. The agents there in their dark suits, and they've now put their sunglasses in their jacket pockets, have walked in, one holding a briefcase. They are there to elicit testimony, and the subject matter is recorded not by any recording device, but by one of the agents who makes notes in hand. Form 302 is generated by that agent after the men leave the apartment building and go to their office downtown, and they type out the form. What is remarkable about this encounter is that no recording is allowed. No, the man was denied the use of his tape recorder to make a record of what they asked him and what his answers were. That's not allowed. And the summary of this interview is the record of fact. It is a factual record, and we know about this because it's a very old form. It's been around for as I say, about 60 years in some form or other. And the Federal Bureau of Investigation, if we are to judge Harvey Silverglate, the attorney's analysis of this form, and other works, say at techdirt.com, this form is a real trap. It is a hazard. It is a hazard to your health. And there's a greater hazard than the form itself. The hazard that you, my listener, need to think about first is letting the door swing open, as opposed to shutting the door firmly with your hand on the knob firmly, and then turning the little dial there to lock it. That's the option you have, is to say, "Good day, gentlemen. Since you don't have a warrant to be here or for my arrest, please leave the property immediately." And as you see them turn away, you then shut the door and lock it. That is the prudent thing to do. It's the prudent thing to do because you're under no obligation to answer anybody's questions. And especially in light of the following. In light of the prospect of your words being converted into a false statement. And that's something that the federal statute allows. It is a provision in the law that makes a misstatement or a partial statement or a misleading statement to the FBI or any federal person, in fact, any state actor at all, a potentially false statement crime. And Harvey Silverglate, in one of his editorials about this one from Forbes magazine, 2013 or 2011, says that there's Section 2001, the so-called federal false statements law, provides that it is a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison to make a material misstatement to any member of the federal government. So any state actor at all from the federal government can turn around and, if he has evidence, accuse you, my listener, of making a false statement. As such, Harvey Silverglate, the attorney, says one of the more ubiquitous counts found in federal indictments is that the defendant, when questioned by the FBI agent, lied. We also know that it is illegal for a person to lie under oath. Typically, such testimony occurs before a grand jury or a court or a congressional committee, and that's called perjury. That's a separate offense. Okay, there's perjury in a public forum, in testimony, or in court. A separate statute covers that. But Section 1001, the false statements law, means that your statement can be used against you at the very least. Can be used against you. And here's how it works, according to an essay in Tector. I believe this is an interview with Hart. Yeah, it's a commentary on Harvey Silverglate's op-ed piece in the Boston Globe. Here's a Q&A, and here's how it turns up in the Form 302. Here's the FBI agent. We found files on your computer showing that you went to a website with instructions on how to make a bomb. So we know you did it. When did you first go to the bomb website? Here's the answer, okay? I surf the web constantly and go through like a million pages. I have no idea what pages I searched or when. How can I possibly know? Okay, here's the notation on Form 302. Okay. D cannot recall when he first went to bomb website, went, quote, constantly. You see what's happening here? Well, that's what happens. A misquote or a misperception or a deliberate misunderstanding of the comment is now lodged in a record, which is the record of the event. No matter what you say, no matter what you remember having said, it doesn't matter, because the record is this typewritten form, Form 302, this unreformable, way out of date federal agency that lets the feds say, when it comes time to drop the hammer on you for some innocuous economic crime or other, to say something like, "Are you lying now, or were you lying earlier?" You see how that works? So the goal is to not say anything at all. And I want to back up to where what's before that. And what's before that is your right to not incriminate yourself. That's under the Fourth Amendment. You have a right not to be searched or seized. You have a right not to be compelled to give any testimony against yourself. And so, therefore, an interview with the two agents, there's your door. And they're very nice suits. And one of them has somewhat scandalous shoes, but the other one's got probably $400 Italian loafers on. You're under no obligation to answer any questions. Now, the problem is the threats and the bluffs. That is what you're going to have to understand will come with that territory. If you stand on your rights to make no statement absent your attorney, then you are going to be threatened. Okay. Now, the FBI, any federal actor can lie to you all he wants. Lying is allowed. In fact, there are high officials in the national government who are expert in misleading the public. So we know that the little guys, the men in the Chattanooga office, they can do the same, and they're going to lie to you. They're going to say, "Well, we think you're in serious trouble, and you better talk to us because we can bring the boom down on you." Or if you don't talk with us now, we're going to go and talk to your employer. Okay, we'll show up at your employer's office and demand to see you, and we'll demand in very rough tones. And that's intimidation. It's intimidation because they want the employer to think that you are in trouble. And, you may be in trouble, right? As a free speech advocate, as someone who's a member of the ACLU, as a good progressive, right? You, my listener, right? You're an environmentalist, right? You are against agribusiness, perhaps. You're against the factory farm abuse of animals, let's just say. And so you are an enemy of the state by definition, if you're in any of those categories. Or if you're, someone who cares about the Constitution, equally dangerous. So, where was I going with this? You are the object of an investigation, and so anything you say to a state actor, anything you say, you, my listener, is going to be put into a chain of facts. Okay, these are facts. So what you say, not what you actually say, but what the record on Form 302 says that you said. That becomes the fact base that will be used later against somebody. The FBI is not there to protect you from danger. It's not there to protect you from concern or anything like that. It is there to criminally prosecute people. That's what the FBI does. It criminally is there to criminally prosecute you. A private party. If we think back of the early 1900s case Hale versus Henkel, a private party is under no obligation to make any statements. He's under no obligation to make any revelation of papers, any revelation of passwords, anything like that at all. He can stand on his rights as a citizen, his constitutional rights as a citizen. He's entitled to carry on his private business in his own way. According to that very famous case, his power to contract is unlimited. He owes no duty to the state or to his neighbors to divulge his business or to open his doors to an investigation, so far as it may tend to incriminate him. He owes no such duty to the state, since he receives nothing therefrom beyond the protection of his life and his property. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land, that is to say, the common law, the constitutional law, antecedent to the organization of the state, it says, and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. Now, we have going on right now in Chattanooga a program of intimidation against certain individuals who are private citizens making comments, and I'm not going to say too much right now about this situation, but these are people who are speaking freely under the protection of the First Amendment. One of them is being threatened by an interview with two FBI agents who left a business card. Well, there is advice to consider. There is advice to consider on this news development. About which you're going to hear only here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are the station, and I, David Tulis, your editor. We are the minority report, if you will, but it's really the majority report, right? We are the majority report, though I like to think in some ways that we are the minority report because very few people make the case for local economy in the free market as we do. And we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. My name is David Tulis, and I urge you to support our station. And we're not begging for money as the nonprofits do, but we are here saying we offer a tremendous service to you, the listener, and to the advertiser. So patronize our advertisers and think about supporting them. We want to have bunches and bunches of small advertisers. Better 10 $100 advertisers than $1,000 advertiser. That's my theory, my theme, because I want to help the little guy. Our station is here about the little guy. And just listen to some of our spots. The smallest people in town who generally cannot afford advertising. We are there to support the link, the connection, the patronage between you, my listener, and that advertiser. Now, the FBI has, according to Harvey Silverglade, whose book, by the way, is a terrific history, legal history, it's called 3 felonies a day. In other words, you can be accused of 3 felonies a day just by the existence of various statutes. There are hundreds and hundreds of statutes in the federal code that criminalize many innocent activities. So there are 4 separate justifications that the FBI has for its non-recording policy, and one of them is really ludicrous, and it says There are 56 field offices and over 400 resident agencies in the FBI. A requirement to record all custodial interviews throughout the agency would not only involve massive logistical and transcriptional support, but would also create unnecessary obstacles to the admissibility of lawfully obtained statements, which through inadvertence or circumstances beyond control of the interviewing agents could not be recorded. And it goes on to say, in this age where recording devices are ubiquitous, right? They are everywhere. It goes on to say that the non-recording policy. Remember, no record can be kept except the FBI's. You are not allowed to make a tape recorder. If your attorney's there, he can't make a tape either. Okay, so that's why you should not talk at all. Make no statement. If I've done anything wrong, get an indictment. Get an indictment. That's what you need to say. You might say, I have no courage to say things like that, but you do. Because if you don't rely on the people to protect you, then you're going to be washed away. They're just going to wash you away, and you will be nothing before their eyes. An indictment is the people saying, yes, we think that there's enough material in this presentation by the prosecutor to have a trial of the facts. That's all an indictment is. And your defense, you have a right to an indictment. So when someone threatens you with an indictment, they're threatening you with a right. Okay, don't believe it. You have a right to be indicted, which means that people pass to some extent on the accusations. And yes, I know that federal grand juries are so lacking self-regard that they would indict a ham sandwich. But what you're doing, you, my listener, a free speech advocate, a person who speaks his mind freely for Christianity, against Islam, against President Obama, against the Congress, against this agency, against that agency, what have you, your activity has even less movement of its molecules than a ham sandwich. So you're not likely to be indicted. Say if there's something against me, talk to the grand jury about it, but you make no statement. If they have something on you, well, believe me, they'll get an indictment. If you've done nothing wrong, have confidence in your innocence. Have confidence that you are an innocent man, that you are simply exercising the rights of American citizenship. You are an innocent man, making your opinion known by any medium that available to you, whether it's Facebook, email, posts on YouTube, statements in newspaper, letters to the editor, comments you've made on websites after at the bottom of articles. These are all things that are your means of self-expression. You are innocent. You are innocent. And so what I would say to anyone, maybe you, when you are confronted by the two agents at your door, that you say, I'm an innocent man. I'm a good man. Why do we here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County care about privacy? Do we want to have our private papers and private effects and secure communications because we're guilty? Do we want to have secure private communications because we are involved in fraud, child pornography, abuse of women, abuse of others, or things that are actual crimes? Because we're covering up a rape? Is that what we're covering up, an adultery? Is that why we want privacy? No, we want privacy because we're good. You want privacy. You, my listener, here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, you want privacy because you're good. And so that's the position you need to take vis-a-vis the two very handsome young men at your door, one with the nice shoes, and their sunglasses are now in their pockets. They're expecting to be invited in. You're the man to say, no, there can't be. I'm not. Even if I could record this interview, I do not give an interview. I will not give an interview. Get off my property. You don't have a warrant to be here, and you don't have a warrant for my arrest. Get lost. Now, I wouldn't probably say get lost. I mean, I try to be very mild-mannered, right? I am, after all, David Tulis, the mild-mannered editor of Nooganomics.com. And your very mild-mannered host here at the Edward Jones Patrick Neal Station in Hickson. What I would say is you do not have any business being here. Please get off my property unless you have a warrant for my arrest. And I respectfully, you could say this: I respectfully have nothing to say and demand my protections under the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. Do you understand that, sir? Okay. You say it, throw a sir in there, throw a ma'am in there, and you'll be fine. But you want to be very respectful, but you want to be very firm and say it loudly enough to be heard. Don't mumble it, don't whisper it, don't burble it. Okay, no burbling. Speak manfully and say, "Sir, I respectfully have nothing to say, and I demand my protections. I maintain all my protections at all time, and at no time do I give up any right under the Constitution. Please be gone. Thank you, sir. Good day. That's it. Okay. You say nothing more. And then when you get in, make an affidavit. That's what I have had occasion to suggest to the party involved in this investigation. Make an affidavit on any encounter. There may be harassment, and the men may show up at your employer and have a kind of a nasty, threatening interview with your manager or the owner of the company. Well, it's called prior restraint. The good people want to restrain your free speech. They want to restrain, especially the Christian man of courage. Well, we've got a lot to get to today. One of the things we want to bring up is an event held yesterday at the Red Bank Chamber of Commerce, where a Secret Service agent talked about counterfeiting, and there's a counterfeiting threat to the paper money scheme the federal government runs. Think of it: there are people who want to copy a counterfeit currency. This is David Tulis.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After this chilly start, got lots of sunshine and great looking weather again for your Wednesday. A little warmer though, highs lower 70s tonight. Clear, cool lows into the mid 40s. For Thursday and Friday, continue dry, lots of sunshine, warmer with highs mid and upper 70s. Fall is in the air at Lowe's, so hurry in today for big savings on everything you need to get your home ready for the season. Don't miss out on fall's best savings now at your neighborhood Lowe's. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson, or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation, 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. A pilot's been killed in a U.S. fighter jet crash in the UK.
The F-18 came down near a British airbase in Suffolk, a couple of hours north of London. Reports here say the jet had made a refueling stop in England and was heading back to the US, but it crashed shortly after takeoff.
Fox Radio's Simon Owen. An officer shot and killed after responding to reports of shots fired in New York City. 33-year-old Randolph Holder, a 5-year veteran of the force, hit in the forehead.
New York City Police Commissioner Bill Bratton reacted to details of the officer's death.
I've been doing it for 45 years. It doesn't get easier.
Meantime, police say the suspected bicycle thief turned cop killer was hit in the leg during the shootout. He's being treated while in custody.
Fox Radio's Tom Graham. And GM's third quarter profit falling slightly, but the company riding strong North American sales to overcome $1.5 billion in costs from its deadly ignition switch recall.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
We make the very weak and whimsical argument for local economy. It's an argument that doesn't have a lot of muscle in it, and in fact, it's just a series of suggestions that, together, taken as a whole, I think bring the prospect of maybe a new life in Chattanooga, maybe in your life a new perspective. We're hoping that it will work on you over time. In some, if we had to make it in one statement, it would be love your neighbors and buy local. But in the details, if you want to say these are details, there are 5 claims. Near is better than far, small better than big, and simple than complex. And down in the footnotes, I believe always make an argument by 3. And if you have more arguments, don't give them their own number, but make them subsidiary to others. And so these are footnotes. Personal is better than complex, and physical than abstract. And my name is David Tulis, and we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Online, just slap a .com on there, and you'll stream us into your computer. And if you're going beyond the pulsing reach of our 1,000-watt transmitter in Saudi Daisy, well, you can hear us on your smartphone with the TuneIn Radio app. The TuneIn Radio app. We're brought to you by Superior Air Systems and the Big Orange Fans that make sure your house is warm in the winter and cool in the summer. That's Superior Air Systems in the bright orange vans driving around town, providing relief wherever they stop. The number is 886-6602, 886-6602. And speaking of people who are not going along with the main theory, there is Chattanooga Sports Institute, which is apart from the world of insurance and government medical care, apart from the bureaucratic world of ICD-10s. Now, the new coding system went into effect, boggling every medical office across the land. Danielle Mitchell is having none of it, and she has a wonderful alternative argument and alternative medical practices at her family practice, her orthopedic practice, and her urgent care practice, and all those 3 under the heading Chattanooga Sports Institute, and that's Chattanooga Sports Institute. She's going to be on just after my show. Her show is This Doc is in the House. Call her at 875-1005. And my name is David Tulis. We had in Red Bank yesterday a Secret Service agent give a kind of ambling presentation with about 5 minutes of useful details at the end. It was at the Chamber of Commerce lunch that I think it's maybe a weekly or semi-weekly event all around Chattanooga. There's one here in Hickson I've been to a couple of times. And we had Bob Biles attend and make note of what the agent said. His name is Agent Juan Alicia. And he spoke about counterfeiting the U.S. currency, the Federal Reserve note, as it's called, the green rectangle. That's a bit of mystery paper in your billfold. I do hope you have bills and not just credit cards. But Bob Biles is the meetup group organizer for the Bitcoin interest here in town. Bitcoin is the cryptocurrency, a view of the future, and may actually fill out the future and amplify itself in the years ahead. Maybe it's just an early experiment that fades away. We're not sure exactly. But Bob, welcome to the listeners' notice here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
What did the agent say yesterday at the juicy part of his presentation?
Well, let me just first correct. Perhaps I didn't make clear earlier when we were talking. It's not that the rest of his presentation wasn't informative. It was, but it dealt with online fraud rather than counterfeiting, which is what I had really gone there.
That was just my editorial comment.
Yes.
I'm not suggesting that was your gloss on his full presentation. I'm sure we want to keep every word of it somewhere on record.
Good. And the primary subject that he talked about when it came to counterfeiting was he talked about the fact that people are able to pass even very bad counterfeit notes because they go to a clerk that is not paying attention, that is distracted by something or simply not motivated to see what's going on. And he said the most effective thing you as an employer can do is to make sure that you understand that your clerks need to pay attention to who their customers are. That if they are, as a customer who seems to be nervous or a little ill at ease when he's making a purchase, just pay attention to him. And then if that evening it turns out to be a bogus bill someplace in the stack that goes to the bank, you can say to the people, yeah, I know he's this guy on the surveillance. This is the one that was acting very strange, and give them some feedback on the matter. So that's really what he was suggesting.
So if let's say my listener is pretending for a second that he's trying to pass a bad bill, what kind of hesitations would come into his demeanor? What would he maybe do that would be a signal, according to the agent?
Well, he didn't go into specifics other than to say that if the person acts nervous and ill at ease, it's probably worthwhile to kind of, as a clerk, remember who he was, so that if it turns out that there's bad bills later on, you can say who he is.
This might be a new customer, maybe someone who's got still in the case of dry mouth, right?
Yes.
Would that be an example of being nervous?
Right.
Or shuffling or looking down the whole time?
Absolutely.
But you know, clerks clerks often don't look at you. I mean, they should, but I always drink in the look from the clerk when I have that encounter, because I want that person to know that I think that he or she is a real person. And so I want to have that union of souls, if you will, where people look into each other's eyes, just for a split second.
And well, more than that, anybody who's had a sales 101 course, the first thing they tell you is to figure out what it is your customer really wants. And you can't do that if you're ignoring him. So even for somebody at a clerk, it makes sense to pay attention to your customer and try and understand what he might want, so that you can give him more of that and up the sales.
Well, what are some recent innovations in the presentation of dollar bills, $5 bills, C notes to my listener and other members of the public? What innovations have made it more difficult to counterfeit?
Well, there's quite a few. If you're just on a technical standpoint, want to look at a bill and say, is this bill good or bad? One of them is the microprinting. If you look around the pictures of the particular presidents, you will see text that's very, very small. You can read it, but you almost have to have a magnifying glass, especially if you're my age. And that's so small that current printers can't produce it. So if you can read that text, that's a good sign that you've got a real bill.
So even if you scan a bill on the slowest, deepest, largest DPI setting, you still won't be able to scan the details and then print them.
That's correct.
On paper of some kind.
That text will be smudged so that you can't read it. The second thing, of course, is something that's actually in the paper, because you probably don't have access to the quality paper, one of which is a watermark. Every watermark for every size bill is different. So the watermark for a $100 bill is different from the watermark for a $1 bill.
And what's a watermark?
A watermark is a image that's embedded in the paper in what looks like a shadow. And if you hold it up to the light and get the light to go through, you will see this image. It's actually in the paper, stained, so to speak, in the paper. And the fact is that one of the methods that people perform counterfeiting is they're smart enough to take a $1 bill and bleach it, and then reprint over it a $100 bill. And of course, if they manage to do it such that you can't find the microprinting, well, you can detect it by the fact that if you're looking for the watermark, you'll have a $1 watermark as opposed to a $100 watermark.
Well, I'm holding in my hand here, my formerly newsprint ink stained fingers, a $20 bill that has a mugshot and a very fine engraving of President Jackson, and his portrait is a watermark in the right hand side, just to the right the where it says 20 spelled out. And I'm looking. There's also one more feature in Bob Biles on every bill. It's a thing that goes vertically from the top to the bottom. What is that about?
Yes.
What's involved?
That is as an embedded strip of material that you can pick up. Actually, there are two more features that I know of. Now, one of them is that embedded strip that's embedded in the paper. And if you hold it up to the light, you will see, I believe there is some printing on that paper that you can see through that little strip.
You mean the strip has its own writing?
I believe the strip actually has a little bit of writing on it that enables you to see for certain what it is. And the last thing that I know of is that they print these with holograms. If you take a look at the ink that's on the 20, you'll see that it's not normal ink. It's ink that changes color depending on the angle that you look at it with the light. And so what they've done is they've actually embedded, I believe, some very, very micro grooves in that printing that allow the light to change colors depending on which way you look at it.
So the Secret Service is charged, among other things, with protecting the life of the chief executive of the national corporation, President Obama, in our day, and also protecting the integrity of the currency.
That is correct.
And why is it important that the currency be protected? What's the problem with my listener or a friend of his down in the holler up in Ray County printing a $20 bill? Who's injured by that process?
Well, if you think about the fundamental equation of money and how it works, you've got an exchange, kind of a rough equality between the amount of money in existence and the amount of goods being purchased. And so if I want to buy something from you, you're going to set the price in part by how much money there is around. If the money is a lot of money around, you're going to set the price quite high because it's dear compared to money. If there is not much not much money around, you're going to lower the price because there's a lot more money around. And so the way that money gets created illegally, of course, is by counterfeiters. So every time they print a counterfeit dollar, what they have done is they've increased the amount of money, and that means the money that you have in your pocket buys less goods.
And they have what's essentially free money.
They have free money. They have now managed to issue for just a piece of paper they created out of thin air. They have managed to buy goods on the market that you would have liked to have bought.
But there's it's really kind of a very fine industry, as precise as the Swiss watchmaking industry, to be a counterfeiter. You have to get plates of some kind. I guess the nirvana of the counterfeiter is to buy the plate that the Bureau of Printing and Engraving and Printing, the BEP, uses to run off its latest batch of $100 bills. Right? If they could get those plates, they'd be in heaven, right?
Well, there's a whole lot more than the plates. The plates are definitely one of the issues, of course. You have to have plates that are very accurate reproduction of what the government have, but you have to have paper. If you look at the paper, it's rag paper. It has little fibers of color embedded into it. It has the watermark in there. It has the threads we were just talking about. The ink is a special kind of ink, and in fact, we've just mentioned some of this is holographic ink. And all of that's very, very hard to get and very hard to do.
Right. It's a controlled market. The suppliers guarantee their main customer, in this case, the Federal Reserve System or the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, that no one else can buy this ink. We've made it just for you. It's an exclusive product, and they're held to it probably under criminal penalties, I would suppose.
Absolutely.
You can't let that get out of your shop.
The problem, of course, is that anything that can be produced by one company can be produced by another. And so now you're in the condition of there being a constant race between the people that the government hires to produce counterfeit currency and the people that are interested in producing the materials necessary to make counterfeit currency. I'm sorry, and people the government hires to produce currency. It was a slip of the tongue.
Oh, that was a Freudian slip.
Yes, we won't go into that.
Well, no, actually, we are going to go into that. This is David Tulis. We're talking with Bob Biles, who is the Bitcoin meetup group organizer here in Chattanooga. And in fact, the next meeting of the Bitcoin group is this coming Tuesday. There's a 5 o'clock chatter time on the 4th floor of the public library downtown. And then if there's any serious business at hand, maybe a new visitor wants to know how it works, or he wants to hear more, that's I guess the business meeting that starts at 6. Is that the routine?
Well, no, if we have a speaker or somebody giving a formal talk, it's at 6. But I highly recommend, if you don't know anything about Bitcoin and you want to learn, that's an excellent way to do
it. We've got a caller. Caller, this is David Tulis, and you're on the air live. What's on your mind?
Can I throw something out to you guys?
We're not finished, but go ahead.
I can see why people would get upset when the currency was redeemable for actual dollar quantities of gold and silver in particular, up until June 24th, 1968, because if I produced one of these and you went to a bank, you can actually get real money. But at this point, why would anybody get upset at somebody printing something that has actually no value? As a matter of fact, how can a government claim that something that's just a piece of paper with no redemption have value? And on top of that, why would any lunatic take a piece of paper for a good or service that is just paper with a number on it? That's what intrigues me. And by the way, the Supreme Court has ruled that these junk notes that are around, they're not even notes, because a note is a promise to pay money. It's this currency, well, it's not even currency. Well, what claims to be a dollar has never been ruled constitutional by the Supreme Court because it promises no redemption, and it's not a note, it's not federal, there's nothing in reserve, it's a total fraud. And for anybody to accept that, they have had to have been brainwashed. And I don't know how it could be considered counterfeit. Okay, thanks.
Well, the caller is making a great point, which is exactly where Bob Biles, our Bitcoin meetup group organizer here in Chattanooga, and a kind of dissenter, a monetary dissenter, if you will, are going. Here's the sound. Okay, you the listener, I want you to hear two sounds. Okay, sound A is this. Oh, you hear that? Okay, that's a kind of a light, chinkly, clinky sound. Now, here's another sound. Okay. What I'm doing here is I'm moving around in my palm a second, creators of a second sound, and those happen to be dollar coins. Those are called Morgan dollars. They are the real dollar. The first set of sounds you heard were your current kind of crappy cupro nickel, non-referential and effectively worthless coins that jingle about in your pockets. It used to be that a $20 bill, now with great refinements in its paper architecture, would give you claim on 20 of the second of coins of the second kind, but no more. So Bob, talk a little bit more about counterfeiting. So in a way, we're looking at a national government that has strict rules against counterfeiting. But I guess we could say they have a strict rule against non-sanctioned counterfeiting, and that's what the Secret Service goes after, the non-sanctioned counterfeiter. Meanwhile, what's the meanwhile?
Well, let me just jump in and say something to the listener who phoned in that I think is a point that he should ponder. Suppose, and I realize this is not likely, but just suppose we were able to find a group of angels and put them in charge of the Federal Reserve. And these angels were absolutely determined, come H or high water, that they were not going to increase the money supply, and had the power to make sure that happened. And so you could guarantee through the good auspices of the Lord or whatever source you can think of, that the amount of money in circulation, the amount of dollars, the amount of Federal Reserve notes would not increase. It would stay constant. And coupled to that is the fact that the U.S. government will accept those for taxes. They will accept those for services. They will accept those for a large number of activities. The question that I have to ask the caller is, all of a sudden, are Federal Reserve notes the kind of bad money you were talking about then, if you know that inflation cannot, by divine intervention, occur? I would argue that no. In fact, there's a lot of good reasons why, under those circumstances, the dollar would make excellent money. The problem is that we have the Federal Reserve run by human beings who are controlled by natural human impulses, including greed. And the solution to their greed is to print lots of extra money, and that's going on and on and on. And dollars always suffer this fate. All fiat currencies do. Gold, on the other hand, is constrained by the physical supply, if you will, by what the Lord put on the earth. So those are two differences. But just because the money's printed by the government doesn't mean it's bad money. It's because the government prints too much.
Too much of it. Caller, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Okay, we have to talk about your premise.
This man's got my number, but go ahead.
Okay. Here's the thing. We are a nation governed by law.
Yes.
So I don't accept your premise. Under Article 1, Section 8, the power for the federal government to emit bills of credit was struck by a guy named Roger Sherman, who sat in the hot sun in Philadelphia. So the federal government is restricted from creating paper currency, even redeemable paper currency.
Well, the states are exactly. The states
that?
are restricted. The states are restricted under Article 1, Section 10.
But
implicitly,
there
the
is a legal restriction.
Under Article 1, Section 8, the federal government is granted no power to emit bills of credit. They have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof. Now, this is going to take a second. Money is any medium adapted or adopted by a foreign or domestic government. The Seventh Amendment to the Constitution says any controversy at common law over $20, you're entitled to a jury trial, because the word dollar is a unit of measurement. It's 371 1/4 grains of fine silver. It's a weight. It's not a thing. And the reason for that is under the Articles of Confederation, the Confederacy almost collapsed because they were printing money. So we are a nation of law. To make, under Article 1, Section 10, where it says no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin and tender and paper debts, to make means to pass a legislative act, which means the state does have the power to pass a legislative act making gold and silver a tender and payment of debts. Now, taxes are not debts. A federal tax, only when it is assessed, is a debt. State taxes are involuntary exactions, but are not debts. So the whole premise of the idea of anybody printing currency is illegal, is unconstitutional, was not granted under Article 1, Section 8, isn't forbidden under Article 1, Section 10. I want to say one thing further. The 1792 Coinage Act puts the penalty for debasing the coinage as a death.
It's a capital offense.
The 1792 Coinage Act. If you debase that coin, the penalty is death.
If you debase that coin,
it's fraudulent, and you know what the penalty is, and you know who deserves it. Thank you.
Well, there should be some heads rolling among the good people. On the other hand, the caller makes very astute observations, which are borne out in Edwin Vieira's book, Pieces of Eight, and many other treatises of lesser quality on the monetary issue. But I think the American people really, they couldn't stand right now honest money. Do you agree, Bob Biles, with the American people want to have a system as you described where the money supply could not be expanded any further? They would probably revolt.
Yeah, you really. I think the heroin analog is probably excellent. The alcoholic is probably another excellent analog. We have become addicted to printed money, to the supply increasing steadily, and whereas we want to have stable money, we want to have a system that works reliably, we can't stand the pain. And so you're right. I would agree with that.
Well, let's get to Bitcoin. How is Bitcoin a possible remedy? What is the theory of Bitcoin? How does it work? And how could it be a possible form of salvation for my listener and other Americans?
Well, Bitcoin is just like any other form of equity money. As an example, just like gold, it was modeled quite a bit after the gold system. And the gold system is that if you want gold, you have to get a shovel and dig it out of the ground. You can't print it. Bitcoin is set up to do the same thing with Bitcoins. If you want Bitcoins, you have to go to work. It doesn't happen to be digging out of the ground, but they call it mining nonetheless, and actually produce a Bitcoin. And it's not something that's easy to do. And the supply is controlled by a consensus mechanism that every holder of Bitcoins participates in. And so it's got this inertia, so to speak, caused by the fact that it's a huge group of people that already accept it.
And in Bitcoin, Bob Biles of the Bitcoin Meetup Group in Chattanooga, there is a limit to the number of Bitcoins that can be mined. At some point, the last coin will be mined, and then the supply is fixed.
That is
as
correct.
you proposed in your theory.
That is correct. Unless, and this is always a possibility, over 50% of the Bitcoin holders and producers in the world say, hey, we want to raise this limit. And that's certainly possible, but getting 50% of the people to agree to do that is going to be real tough.
That would be a form of group suicide.
It would, yeah. It would
brand suicide.
Yes, yes.
Well, we are concerned about prosperity. That's why we think about these questions, because you, my listener, have your assets stored, your investments denominated in this green rectangle. This one I'm holding up to our YouTube viewer has a 20 on it, and yet there's nothing intrinsically different about the words on this bill versus the words on a bill that has 100 written on it. They're both the same expensive paper procedure that the Secret Service protects by counterfeiting investigations, and yet inherently they're the same. There's a wonderful irrationality built into the monetary system where 100 doesn't give you more claim on real substance, as in dollars weighed out in silver, as a $20 bill gives you a claim on real substance. These bills are all the same. They're figments. They're kind of idiosphere money, right, Bob?
Yes, that's correct.
Bob Biles, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bob Biles, you meet him this coming Tuesday at the Public Library at 5 or 6. There's a meeting of the Bitcoin Meetup Group. This is David Tulis, and I do thank you for giving us a couple minutes of your time here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. If you have numbers problems, meet the numbers guy, EJ Pelton, the accountant. He can be reached at 622-3156. That's 622-3156.
After this chilly start, expect lots of sunshine and great looking weather again for your Wednesday. A little warmer though, highs lower 70s tonight. Clear, cool, lows into the mid 40s. For Thursday and Friday, continue dry, lots of sunshine, warmer with highs mid and upper 70s. Fall is in the air at Lowe's, so hurry in today for big savings on everything you need to get your home ready for the season. Don't miss out on fall's best savings now at your neighborhood Lowe's. And I'm WDEF News Swallow Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
We do the best quality work. We have the best customer service, the most competitive prices around.
Cell Surgeon, a painless operation to fix your sick device.
Well, if you have a cheap charger or something that's not really designed for your phone, it can mess with your battery. It can actually fry your phone. So you need to make sure you have a quality product that's going to be designed for your phone.
Cell Surgeon, your smartphone doctor's in the house at the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
If you charge it in the morning and, by noon, it's at, 50% under normal use, that means your battery's pretty much dead. And once you've reached that point, it starts to deteriorate.
Cell Surgeon, call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com.
We do free estimates. If your phone's not working properly, bring it in. We're more than happy to take a look at it and diagnose it and see what we think is wrong with it at no charge. Most phone repairs can be done in 30 minutes or less.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
Don't take it in the bathroom. Don't ever put it in your back pocket. And don't charge your phone while you're sleeping.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. That's cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. Cell Surgeon, your smart device doctor is in the house.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at EJ Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brandon Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's EJ Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Hear it live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern state.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedatani. It's his way or no way for Congressman Paul Ryan. Ryan says he won't run for Speaker of the House if hardcore Republican conservatives don't agree to let him do the job as he sees fit. Live to Capitol Hill and CBS's Stephen Portnoy. Stephen, what's the reaction been to that?
Well, members of the House Freedom Caucus have not been warm to Ryan's requests. North Carolina Congressman Walter Jones says Ryan is, quote, not what we need.
We need someone that can represent the American people and not special interests. That's what John Boehner's problem was.
Speaker Boehner has set a nomination vote 1 week from today and a vote on the House floor for his replacement 1 week from tomorrow. If after all this, Paul Ryan decides not to run, nobody's sure what will happen next. Frank?
The movement to thin out the nation's jail population by releasing nonviolent offenders is getting an endorsement from scores of top law enforcement officials from around the country. Criminologist Natasha Frost says the policy of locking them up and throwing away the key wasn't working.
It certainly did not lead to the massive declines in crime, and most people see it as one of the least likely explanations for why we've seen crime drop so precipitously over the past couple decades.
President Obama will be in Charleston, West Virginia today to shine a spotlight on a raging heroin epidemic.
Dr. Carl Sullivan has seen the epidemic up close.
Most of my patients now who started on prescription opioids, by the time I'm seeing them, have moved over to heroin.
Sullivan's one of the medical professionals, educators, and others affected by the drug crisis who will meet with the president. He says funding is available for treatment, but waiting lists can be as long as a year.
I mean, can you imagine if you had diabetes, if you had to wait for a year?
He says the president's attention to the problem will help the situation. Pam Coulter, CBS News, the White House.
Secretary of State Kerry and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov spoke by phone this morning about the fighting in Syria. Lavrov, Kerry, and diplomats from Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Turkey plan to meet Friday in Vienna. Russian President Vladimir Putin held a surprise meeting in Moscow last night with Syrian President Bashar Assad. Analyst David Schenker believes Putin hit a home run with his decision to give Assad military assistance.
It reestablishes, in a way, Putin and Russia as a player in the region. For the past 4 decades or so, a pillar of U.S. policy has been to keep the Russians out of the Middle East, and they've come back in a very big way.
Police are holding the man who allegedly slashed 2 Detroit EMTs while they were treating a woman the suspect had been walking with. Union spokesman Jeff Galgilio says EMTs could use better training.
How to mitigate situations, how to, use psychology to, read body language to get out of situations before they escalate.
Police also arrested the woman who was being treated. In early trading on Wall Street, the averages are moderately higher. The Dow Industrials are ahead 18 points. This is CBS News.
I've been talking with small business owners about hiring people, and they say, I post my job somewhere and I either get nothing or I get a bunch of resumes, but they're not qualified. So how do I find qualified candidates? There doesn't seem to be an easy way to do this, but there's a new service that's making this process a lot easier for you. It's called Pro Job Network. You just tell them who you need to hire, and they post your job opening on 40 different websites. It would take you forever to do that yourself. And then in about a day, maybe 2, depending on the type of job, you have a list of qualified local candidates that you can choose from. If you're hiring, I'm telling you, this is the way to do it. You'll save time, money, you'll find good employees. These guys are doing a 1-week free trial right now. You can get your jobs posted, start getting some qualified candidates. It's completely free. No obligation. So to get your free trial, just go to postmyjobforfree.com. Postmyjobforfree.com. Again, that's postmyjobforfree.com.
The UN's top diplomat is using his good offices in an attempt to stop a month of violence that's claimed the lives of 10 Israelis and almost 50 Palestinians. CBS's Robert Berger has the latest from Jerusalem.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and called for an end to a wave of attacks on Israelis.
Violence will not bring a just and lasting peace, but will only push back the day when Palestinians will achieve statehood.
Ban said illegal Israeli settlement activity is inflaming tensions, and he warned that time for a peaceful 2-state solution is running out. Robert Berger, CBS News, Jerusalem.
Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has endorsed Iran's nuclear deal with the United States and other world powers, but he says Tehran has to be vigilant because he doesn't believe the U.S. can be trusted. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
This is David Tulis, the editor of the website Nooganomics.com. I have a story out this morning about Senator Todd Gardenhire, and he falls into a very popular logical fallacy. And in Latin, it's called post hoc ergo propter hoc. And what that means is, listen to this: if B follows A, then A caused B. That's a logical fallacy, very, very popular. And so if you want to find out where the error lies, you'll want to go to Nooganomics.com, of which I'm the mild-mannered editor, the man with ink stains formerly on his fingertips, having been 24 years a copy editor here at the Chattanooga Time-Free Press, which I still read. I still get the copy in print. But post hoc ergo propter hoc is a Gardenhirean fallacy of the day. Maybe there are others, but let's hope he is more mindful. Well, we want to find out more about something that touches on your interest, you, my listener, and it is this. Do you know that you and probably everybody in the building in which you work are not covered by the vaccine, the vaccinations that you had when you were a boy and a teenager? There's no, you're effectively not covered. And the reasoning is this: the theory in the medical profession is that vaccines have their effectiveness, give immunity between 2 and 10 years. It's not lifetime immunity at all. And so you, my listener, are very likely part of a very large population of effectively non-vaccinated people. And to find out more about this and the continuing conflict over vaccinations and the great damage that they cause to individuals, I have with me Mary Kavanaugh. She's a mom of 3 girls in Orlando, and she is part of a group called Thinking Moms Revolution, and on the web that's thinkingmomsrevolution.com. And she's also an autism entrepreneur, as she describes it, which means that she has products and solutions for people whose children are stricken with this neurological disorder. So, Mary, tell my listener about this change of view as to what brings immunity and what it means for this vaccination story here in Chattanooga and elsewhere. If most people, in fact, are living lives effectively untouched by vaccinations.
Well, I actually learned this from Dr. Blaylock, and I read a book of his years ago called Excitotoxins. And Dr. Blaylock is actually a former neurosurgeon, and he became a researcher after he lost both his parents to Parkinson's. So he says that when he went to medical school, he was taught that all childhood vaccines last a lifetime. So that was the belief that we had 70 years ago. But it now, until recently, now the thinking has been changed. So we're all told that we are now being told that vaccines lose their effectiveness for 2 to 10 years after they are given. So what does that mean? That means that the baby boomers, and I'm a baby boomer, so I've had no vaccine-induced immunity against any of my childhood vaccines. So we're talking 50% of the population has been unprotected for decades. And the most important thing is we've had no resurgent epidemics that have occurred because of this. So my question is, why are we getting vaccinated?
And why is California, for example, compelling all young people who are attending schools, whether public or private, to have vaccinations?
Yeah, Senate Bill 277 just passed recently, and not only that, there was another bill that passed, and any daycare worker is going to also have to be vaccinated. And the only way that anyone who lives in California whose child possibly has already had problems with the previous vaccines that they've received, they are still going to be required if they attend school, and that includes private or public school, to get vaccinated starting January 2016. The only way that they will be able to avoid this is if they homeschool.
Well, now in Atlanta on Friday and Saturday, Mary Kavanaugh, there are going to be hundreds of people, presumably concerned about this issue, gathering at the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. What is this protest about, and why are you involved in promoting it? What's going on?
Okay, well, the protest is all about exposing truth, and we want the CDC to become more transparent, and we also feel like it's very important for each of us as an individual to have medical freedom, to make our own decisions as to what we are going to put in our blood. So we have at least 12 organizations involved in this. One is the Thinking Moms. We have Vax Truth. We have Safe Minds. We have Focus for Health. Those are just a few, and there's also the Million Man March is behind us as well. And the reason I say that is because Louis Farrakhan understands now what's happened, and we have a CDC whistleblower named Dr. Thompson, and he has come forth, Dr. William Thompson has come forth and said that all the Black children that received the MMR vaccine prior to age 3, there was a 235% increase in autism in that population. So that is very concerning to him.
What is MMR? What is MMR?
I'm sorry?
What is MMR? What does that mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. The measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine.
And so, what is this man saying?
Well, this man is saying that any child in the Black population that has received that vaccine prior to 3 years of age, there was a 235% increase in autism. And it also shows that the children that were perfectly fine when they were born, and this is all races, the white race in particular, it shows that the children that have been vaccinated prior to age 3, but when they were born, they were fine, and then they developed autism, they also had a large increase in autism.
Is Mary Kavanaugh, talk a little bit about autism and its connection with gut flora, which is to say you might say the life forms in the intestine. What is the connection between autism and vaccinations, which often contain toxic materials such as mercury in the form of thimerosal?
Okay. Well, vaccines actually decrease the immune system. And the immune system is actually our gut. And you have microflora in the gut, which is bad bacteria and good bacteria. And when that gets out of balance, that is when you're going to see the allergies and you're going to see the asthma. Also, we have more neurotransmitters in our gut than we do our brain. And what happens with the mercury is when it crosses the brain-blood barrier, and this was actually shown at a congressional hearing in November 2013, where they showed it was a cow, but they showed mercury crossing the brain-blood barrier of a cow, and it actually shrunk the synapses of the neurotransmitters. And it is my belief that, we always hear left brain, right brain, and God designed the brain so that when one part of the brain is injured, then the uninjured side is going to go to a much higher level to make up for the injury.
And how does mercury in a vaccination affect that transfer of power, if you will?
Well, mercury is a neurotoxin. So if it crosses the blood-brain barrier, it actually settles in the tissues. And what's really interesting is my daughter actually had a heavy metal toxicity test, and she was found to be off the charts in copper, magnesium, and manganese. But the thing about that is mercury showed a very small amount. So the mercury in that test is not going to show a tremendous amount because it hides in the tissue. So if it hides in the tissue, you're not even going to see it showing up on the test.
Well, what does that mean for my listener and his seemingly autistic child? What is he to know? What is he to do?
The most important thing in regard to autism, you have to think heavy metal toxicity. So when you have these heavy metals and they're sitting in the body and the body doesn't recognize them and the body doesn't process it, then it affects the whole natural energy flow of the body. So the most important thing that you need to do is get those heavy metals out. And there are ways to do that through, there's an ionic foot cleanse that we're having a lot of success with. And there's also a nano-sized zeolite, which is in the form of a spray, which is actually a stable molecule that you can spray on food. And we're having success with that as well.
Well, how does one get these metals out of the flesh, as you describe it, or out of the brain? How do you remove them? It sounds like what you're proposing in the way of remedies from the medical field are either palliatives or it sounds a little superficial somehow. How do you get these metals, whether mercury or aluminum, out of the body?
Well, the metals are actually positively charged. So the nano-sized zeolite is negatively charged. So that will go in the body and it will attract the positively charged metals. It'll only stay in the body about 6 hours and then it goes out through the urine. Now, in regard to the foot bath, the skin is like your second way of detoxifying. So a lot of these kids, when they get those vaccines, you're going to see all kind of blotches, like they're going to get eczema, or they're going to have, and what the body's doing is it's actually detoxifying through the skin. So that's why if you're able to do an ionic foot cleanse, which is actually charged water, then you are able to get some of that out. And that's what we're seeing. We actually see the heavy metals coming out.
What do you know about chelation therapy, either oral or intravenous, Mary Cavanaugh?
Well, intravenous, there's glutathione, and what we find is these kids are very low in glutathione. And what's so tragic is that when these kids are getting the vaccines and they develop that really high fever, then the doctor, the pediatrician, usually will tell them, well, give your child Tylenol. Well, Tylenol actually lowers the glutathione levels. So just for an example, if someone goes to the emergency room and they have taken an overdose of Tylenol, the first thing that they will do in the emergency room is give them IV glutathione, because glutathione's in your liver, and if you don't have any more glutathione in your liver, you're dead. So that's the washing machine of the body, and it's really important to have enough glutathione to combat the toxicity, and that's actually shown in the research that I actually compiled to win my case against Aetna, and it showed that kids with autism have low glutathione, and that makes perfect sense because they cannot detox the heavy metals, and so they're just sitting in the body.
Now, there's a kind of a secret industry, Mary Cavanaugh, that the government runs to pay injured families, injured children injured by vaccines, to pay them off, but they have to sue within the is it in the Department of Human Services, or is it within the CDC? Since 1988, there's a system whereby they can be the government and the vaccine manufacturers apparently are not held liable, and yet there is some kind of financial relief offered to injured families. What can my listeners know about that?
There's a vaccine injury claims court which has already given out $3 billion worth of compensation for these families. And they have a master's I'm not sure what it's called, but it's some judges that determine whether they feel like that child has been injured enough or to the degree that they deserve compensation. So it's a special masters. It's totally different from, if you would go to court and you have a jury. It's not at all like that.
Yeah, so it's not strictly a judicial.
They have all the power.
It's not strictly a judicial setting then, Mary Kavanaugh. It's more of an administrative setting in which your claim is made.
Yes.
And that's been going on since 1988. Well, so let me kind of get a sense of the main point you're making. There's a protest Friday and Saturday in Atlanta against what are called CDC crimes. That is the Centers for Disease Control. A rally among the speakers is Robert Kennedy Jr. And just by the way, how is he involved in this effort to expose the vaccine industry?
Well, Robert Kennedy Jr. has always been concerned about mercury, and I think it started with the power plants. And then he started talking to the moms. Because the moms have been very concerned about vaccines. I mean, there have been moms that have been involved in this for 20 years. I'm actually kind of a babe. I've been involved about 8 years. But so when he started talking to the moms and, he was hearing the moms say, I took my child in to get vaccinated. They were perfectly fine. And then, all of a sudden, within a week or so, they just stop talking, or they don't look at me anymore. I mean, I would recommend that anyone that gets their child vaccinated, they take a before and after picture, because you see changes in the eyes. The eyes are no longer able to track or team or focus. And that's something that they do not test for in the school. So if your child has trouble reading, that would definitely be something I would look into.
Well, what is the burden of thought, if you will, that surrounds my listener and his wife? They have the idea that doctors, the medical profession, has a fiduciary duty to the health of the individual. They have a family doctor, and they think, well, why would he say anything bad? He's certainly read the literature. He knows there's a controversy, and he's taken a position. Certainly that's being done in good faith. So why shouldn't we listen to our doctor who says, well, now's the time for the very first vaccination of your child. He's been alive out of the womb for 4 days now, and you need to come by the office for his first round. Why does my listener willingly agree to that? What's the nature of his thinking?
Well, we've been taught to trust our doctor. I mean, we're told to trust our doctor probably, multiple times when we watch the TV commercials with the drugs that they're advertising. So, and I was taught to trust my doctor, and I would like to think I could trust my doctor. But what's happened is, if you look at the vaccine schedule, like say in 1980, okay, children got 8 shots before the age of 2, and they never got more than 2 shots per visit. Now, go to 2012. We're up to 49 doses of 14 vaccines by the age of 6. Now,
what kind of vaccines?
Go to 2016. Now what we're doing is we've got 50 injections from 18 years on down. We are up to 50 injections.
What are we injecting in our children, Mary Kavanaugh? For what are we
are injecting them? The worst thing is, in 1988, they decided to use fetal cell DNA in the vaccines. And that's when you started seeing a lot of harm being done. They are also they're using aborted cell tissue. They're using a monkey virus. They're using, you got the mercury and aluminum as well. Aluminum is a neurotoxin. It's very lethal to the brain.
This is David
Tulis. And the two
Tulis.
together, the mercury and the aluminum, the body is not made to process that.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Mary Kavanaugh of Orlando. She represents Thinking Moms Revolution, very concerned about vaccination damage and the great swelling tide of autism among children. We are hearing advertisements on this station saying that 1 out of every 50 children is autistic. This is remarkable. It's not natural. It is a deviation. It is a malformation of human society and human culture, and is being led by people who are profiting greatly. From the disbursements of these medications, these vaccinations, and then B, from the remedies that come when damage is brought about. We make much of the profit motive here. We say that without profit, no business is sustainable. However, the profit motive also drives potentially wicked, potentially evil machinations against not just the mass public, but against you, my listener, And so we're concerned about anything that's mass health, public health, mass schooling, public schooling, mass surveillance, public surveillance. These are all things that are kind of the same theory. Well, this is David Tulis. We're going to be right back in just a minute. I've got some important things to hear for you to hear. Just keep it here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After this chilly start, we've got lots of sunshine and great looking weather again for your Wednesday. A little warmer though, highs lower 70s tonight. Clear, cool lows into the mid-40s. For Thursday and Friday, continue dry, lots of sunshine, warmer with highs mid and upper 70s. Fall is in the air at Lowe's, so hurry in today for big savings on everything you need to get your home ready for the season. Don't miss out on fall's best savings now at your neighborhood Lowe's. And I'm WDEF News Fall Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson, or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Patrick Neal at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation, 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. There's been a deadly U.S. fighter jet crash over the UK.
British police and the U.S. Embassy here saying the pilot of a supersonic F-18 jet was killed when the plane came down this morning, shortly after taking off from a military base in eastern England. The crash occurring on farmland. The U.S. Air Force says it's investigating, but is yet to release details.
Fox Radio Simon Owen. Flags flying at half-staff in New York City for Officer Randolph Holder, shot and killed while chasing down a suspect.
He was responding to a 911 call from gunfire, which erupted between two rival gangs here in East Harlem.
Fox's Laura Engel, the suspect, is in custody with a wound to his leg. And Toyota is recalling 6.5 million vehicles around the world for a defective power window switch that can overheat, melt, and lead to fires. There's been one injury in the U.S. person who suffered a burn on the hand reported related to.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
This is David Tulis. I'm hungry already. I had some tacos yesterday from Dahlia's, just to fill me, to keep me going in the mid-afternoon. Dahlia's Authentic Mexican Restaurant in South Saudi Daisy. And Maria Hernandez, who named the restaurant after her mother. I've been saying Delia's, but it's actually Dahlia's. I was corrected by a caller who said, hey, we heard about Maria, and her mom's name is correctly pronounced with an A, not an E. So, but my tongue may be mispronouncing, but my tongue does not taste wrongly the fine fare at Dahlia's, whether it's quesadillas or enchiladas or loaded nachos, what have you. All the best fare. The special today is the taco salad number 19. It's $1 off at Dahlia's. And just ask for that and save a buck. And mention if you're new, a new visitor to Dahlia's, say that, hey, you heard about her fine place on the radio, and I will stand more favorably in Maria Hernandez's graces. I'm always seeking her grace and hoping that she'll stay on our station. And that's how we make our living here in commercial radio, is we serve you with the best of programming. Even though I'm number 5, we're still serving you with the best of programming and serving our advertiser. And speaking of number 5, I think that's where I am. And there's a dark line forming on my collar of my shirt as I try to get ahead of Keon Rose, our sports expert, Eric Judd, the convivialist, and our expert on the tech sector, our news director, Russell the Kid, and of course Sean Hannity's in there. And I just can't get ahead. I'm doing my best to make things better for you. And please don't have too high expectations of me, David Tulis. But you can have very high expectations of Dahlia's, and she will respect them. She will respect them. Also, by the way, if you need cell phone repair, go to Cell Surgeon next to Old Chicago's Pizza at Northgate Mall, and open Sunday. The number is 668-0100. That's 668-0100. Cell Surgeon, the best service, very quick. Also, now we have a question before us, and that is vaccinations. We've made a big deal about aluminum in the air, but we have in vaccinations, we have preservatives and actual poisons, which are part of the wonderful process of mass inoculation, including aluminum, but also mercury, which is far more toxic. And a kind of a public specialist and activist in this question, who's against them, right? She's against them, is Mary Kavanaugh, hailing here from Orlando. She represents Thinking Moms Revolution. It's a group that also has a blog that's called thinkingmomsrevolution.com. And the concern is autism and various neurological disorders that come from, among other things, vaccination. So, Mary, is my listener, who's, let's just pretend for a moment, in his 50s, is he still enjoying the coverage of his boyhood inoculations?
No, he is not enjoying any coverage. And in fact, for a long time, they thought that you would have lifetime coverage, but now the latest thinking is that you are only covered between 2 and 10 years, and that is the reason for all these additional boosters.
And so to make up for that, we have children who, as young as 3, are told that their parents are told that they need to have 50 inoculations. Back when you were a girl in the early 60s, a person would get maybe 5 or 6 inoculations, but now it's up to 50. Is that a good sign?
Yeah, it's up to 50 if you're counting all the flu vaccines too, which now they're requiring for every year. I mean, every age practically is asked to get the flu vaccine. And also what's really alarming is that they're giving the flu vaccine to pregnant women. So I find that extremely alarming, because in my day, you weren't allowed to have vaccines when you were pregnant. And not only are they pushing the flu vaccine, but they're pushing the whooping cough vaccine on pregnant women as well.
Are vaccines connected with autism, Mary?
No. You can get autism without being vaccinated. And what it is the mother is also passing on her toxicity to the baby in utero. And there's also a connection because the more heavy metals that you have inside you, the more susceptible you are to the electromagnetic field pollution. And we know that the electromagnetic field has increased tremendously now with all the technology out there.
Well, all right, let's just back up. So you're saying that there's not a connection between vaccinations and autism?
No, there's definitely a relationship between vaccines and autism, but you can also get autism without being vaccinated. Okay. We are seeing cases of autism without vaccination.
But the question still is, autism is connected with vaccines. You're saying they're not connected.
No, I'm saying that vaccines can cause autism, but what I'm also saying is that we have cases of children that have not been vaccinated and are taking on the traits of autism.
Okay, so there's a connection there. Is there a body of studies at all, Mary Kavanaugh, that suggest that children who have not been vaccinated are somehow less healthy, less susceptible to diseases than those who have been vaccinated to some extent?
Oh yes, there's definitely studies on that.
Well, what do they say?
That the unvaccinated are not, they rarely have to go to the doctor.
So because
I'm finding the moms that are not vaccinating their kids, their children are not getting sick. It's all about the immune system, and there's a book called Healing is Voltage, which really opened up my eyes, by Dr. Gary Tennant, who's actually an MD, and he developed the LASIK procedure, which I'm sure your listener is familiar with in regard to vision. And he actually ended up studying the body because when he developed the LASIK procedure, he didn't realize that he needed to have goggles on, and he actually got 2 viruses in his brain and his pancreas from a patient. So for the next 7 years, he slept 17 hours a day and studied the body in his waking moments, because the traditional medicine had no answers for what had happened to him.
Well, how do vaccines create the circumstances allowing or causing autism? Where does autism begin? Is it say something about the connection with the stomach and the digestive system? That's something I don't quite understand.
Well, yeah, if the vaccines are lowering the immune system, and the immune system is the gut, and you have more neurotransmitters in your gut than you do the brain, and the gut is really your second brain. So that's where you have that connection. Because when you disturb that microflora of the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, that also has a connection. I mean, everything in the body is connected.
So when you talk about,
that's something that we all need to embrace.
So when you talk about the gut, you're talking about the digestive system.
You're not necessarily addressing your problem because you're leaving out everything else around that particular specialty.
Is there danger in mercury in amalgam, Mary Cavanaugh, according to the Thinking Moms Revolution group of moms? What did they say?
Yeah, that's actually playing a role. I actually knew a mom who did not vaccinate her child, but her child got amalgams. And that, when you're even chewing, if you've got mercury, if you've got cavities and they were filled with mercury, just that chewing motion is actually letting out that exposure of the mercury. So you're doing that every time you chew. And just you kind of think about it as asbestos, because we were told, asbestos is dangerous, right? And they say you shouldn't remove it, because if you remove it, then it just gets into the air and it's a lot more dangerous. So the best thing to do is leave it alone. So what they're saying now in regard to the mercury in the teeth, and also there's just been a 9-part series on cancer, and they addressed the mercury from the dental profession. And it led me to believe that we should get that mercury out, because what happens is it's affecting, what's going on in your mouth has to do with your health. So it's not good to have that mercury still in your mouth. You need to get that removed, and you have to get it removed by a biological dentist. You cannot go to a regular dentist. You have to have it done under certain circumstances. They use dental dams. It's toxic.
It's more serious surgery.
You have to be very careful. Mercury, I'll give you an example. There was a syringe dropped with mercury in a drugstore. I think it happened in California. It just happened a couple months ago. And they ended up closing the store. They had to get the hazmat crew out. So this is something that, we should stay away from.
We're talking with Mary Cavanaugh in Orlando, who's a critic of vaccinations, and she and her group are promoting an event this Friday and Saturday in Atlanta at CDC, the government medical supervisor, as it were, the Centers for Disease Control. Robert Kennedy Jr., an activist on this issue, will be speaking there, and many others. Mary, let me ask about religious exemptions here in Tennessee. If we have, we can fill out a form or write our own statement. I know I've done them for my children who attended, say, Chat State under dual enrollment. And the statement was that as a practicing Christian, we have a duty to defend God's creation. That includes our own bodies. It is our understanding that vaccinations damage the body. They cause medical problems, and therefore, in light of God's declaration of His ownership of our bodies, we dare not vaccinate. This is a religious statement, though I would say perhaps directly in Christianity, there's no prohibition on getting shots. Now, what happens when this religious exemption is denied to my listener? In some states, as in California, that exemption is being denied entirely by statute.
Yeah, and that is a real problem, and that's why it is so important for everyone that can possibly go to the rally on Friday and Saturday to be in attendance, because that is what is happening now. They are trying to get rid of all the religious exemptions in all the states, and that leaves you with the medical exemption, and they're making it extremely difficult for physicians to give a medical exemption. They do not want the physicians to give a medical exemption. So when the physicians do that, it's to their detriment of their livelihood.
Well, Mary, how can my listener find out more about the rally? Is there a website he needs to go to?
It's the cdctruth.org is the website where you can find out about the rally. The rally is actually going to be, we will not be, of course, on the premises of the CDC, but we will be on a public sidewalk 1600 Clifton Road. We will be there from 7 to 2 on Friday. And the rally with the main speakers will take place on Saturday at Grant Park, which is 840 Cherokee Avenue from 12 to 4. And then there's also going to be an ecumenical service on Sunday at a mosque.
Mary Kavanaugh, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
This is David Tulis. We've been talking with Mary Kavanaugh about vaccinations. There's a multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multicultural opposition to vaccinations being held in Atlanta on Friday and on Saturday. The main event is on Saturday where the speakers are. It's at Grant Park, 12 to 4. There is activity outside the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, which in its former days maneuvered hundreds, thousands of black people into having syphilis, fatal syphilis, so that they could be studied, right? Studied for science. The CDC's forebears involved in the eugenics program, the eugenics movement, but it cleaned up its act and now is an official government agency full of good, cheerful intentions for the American public. And I know you're very confident that the good people care about you, our listener, and want the best for you and your children. Speaking of wanting the best for you and your children, let me mention Ducks, the indoor air professionals, cleaning the air in your business, right? Cleaning the air in your house by getting the mold and mildew out of the ductworks. Also finding the thoraxes of dead animals, rodent corpses, and lost Lego assault rifles that your son dropped down the vent. All those are swept away in the magnificent chore of duct cleaning. Call 876-9907, 876-9907. And the special for you is that if you have your house done, the highly trained crew run by Mark Thompson will clear your dryer vent of the fire trap that resides therein in secret, waiting for you to not be there and the fire and the dryer to be on before igniting in a rich blaze near your carport. Last night, I had a chance to speak to for 3 minutes to a host of young men and their dads at the Trail Life USA chapter meeting. It's every Tuesday evening. Trail Life is the group that aspires to eventually replace the morally corrupted and morally compromised Boy Scouts whose theory will not leave one that pisseth against a wall. Its theory of homosexual devotion, acceptance, toleration, and amity. And the presentation I was in charge of the brief devotional, and I said, well, okay, we want young men to be brave and courageous. We want them to learn to say no, to know that when 2 FBI agents are at the door, that one should not speak to them at all, but one should say the following. One should say, I'm not going to yield any of my rights under the Constitution provisions 4 and 5. And do you understand that? Do you understand that? Okay, you asked that question. Do you understand that? Because that's a yes or no question. And if the agent says yes, then he's leaving. If the agent says no, then you can just repeat yourself. But you make no statement to the agent, who, after any mischanced interview, will write a Form 302, which becomes the official record of that interaction. Your intentions, your real words lost, of course, there being no recording allowed. And how can a man who believes in free speech, a man who believes in constitutional government, how can a pro-government man like you, my listener, or your son not know how to deal with the traps of the modern state? So my presentation, which was down to 3 minutes, read from the book of Daniel when Nebuchadnezzar, as you recall from your days long ago, when you were in Sunday school, remember the story about Daniel and the burning, blazing furnace. The threat was, worship my idol or be burned alive in the hottest furnace that the kingdom has ever seen. And men who believed in God, full of great courage, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, said, "Oh, King Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter." In other words, they're saying, we're going to demur. We're not worried about what you have to say. We're not going to to think about what we're going to talk about. We're not going to negotiate among ourselves how to answer you. We're not afraid of you, though you might take in 5 minutes our lives from us. And they go on to say, if that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up. These men faced death, and they, in fact, were disposed of in the furnace. But by divine miracle, the Lord Jesus himself stood among them in the flames, and they did not even smell of smoke as they emerged, much to Nebuchadnezzar's astonishment. He was astonished, I think the original King James says. And what we have to realize is that some who courageously face lies, face misrepresentations, face death at the hands of oppressors, do lose their lives. And I make mention here of Lord Argyle, the Earl of Argyle, who was a Protestant, a man of conviction. And I'm getting this from Lives of the Scottish Covenanters by John Howey. It's a history of the Reformation touching on Scotland, where many people, many of your people, you, my listeners, people came. They came from Scotland. They were the dissenters against prelacy, that is to say the Church of England, and popery, which is to say the Roman Catholic Church, from which the King of England rose above the church, as it were, as its savior, setting aside the Lord Jesus Christ as the head of the church. And the Earl of Argyle, on his last day, had this happen to him. And he did this because he had the same courage in his breast as the three who faced death, who faced extinction in the fire: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the Israelites who loved God, who feared God more than anything. He spent the 28th of June, which was the Sabbath before his death, in a most becoming way. The history says the manner in which he took leave of his sister, the Lady Loudon, was very moving. His lordship dined with a grave and becoming cheerfulness in the castle, and being used to a little sleep after meat, he retired to his closet and laid himself down on a bed, and for about a quarter of an hour slept as sweetly and as pleasantly as ever. Remember, Peter in the prison faced death the next day as well, as far as he knew, capital punishment at the hands of the soon-to-be extinguished Israelites, and yet slept, the angel having to awake him. And a little bit later, the Earl of Argyle said to me, for me, I hope by God's strength to join with Job and the psalmist, and to trust and pray and hope as they did. I do hereby give all that directly or indirectly have been the cause of my being brought to this place, and pray that God may forgive them. And when he had ended, he turned to the south side of the scaffold and said, gentlemen, I pray, do not misconstrue my behavior this day. I freely forgive all men their wrongs and injuries done against me, as I desire to be forgiven of God. And then he said, this nobleman dies a Protestant. The Earl stepped forward again and said, I die not only as a Protestant, but with a heart hatred of popery, prelacy, and all superstition whatsoever. And then the history says, having taken his leave of his friends, he at last kneeled down, and embracing the maiden, said, this is the sweetest maiden I ever kissed. This was the block of wood upon which his neck was to be laid a moment later. This is the sweetest maiden I ever kissed, it being the mean to finish my sin and misery, and my inlet to glory, for which I long. Then he prayed a little within himself, thrice uttering these words, Lord Jesus, receive me into thy glory. And lifting up his hand, which was the signal, the executioner did his work. Why do administrations hate the Christian? Not because he violently promises to overthrow the government and replace constitutional government, a free people, and free government, as it's called, with an arbitrary, pseudo-theocratic, despotic, absolute tyranny. Not because he wants to do that, But because he says no to Forms 302, he says no to the dual FBI agent team there at the door demanding an interview so that he might incriminate himself before them and their lying formularies. God favors men. He favors men who don't fear men, but who rather fear God. And that's the whole idea of local economy. I think local economy is going to be stronger and more prosperous. Your business will be richer. Your family will be more filled with truth and courage if there is confidence in God. Now, I'm not here to convince you of that. That great message is found in the Christian church, right? It's found among Christian people that you, my listener, know. I mean, they're out there. You just have to ask them hard questions. Ask them about their deity. Ask them about God. Is the God they worship one of grace? Does he forgive the sinner? Is he lowering constantly in judgment, or is there patience? Is there patience in him? Is there courage from him?
After this chilly start, expect lots of sunshine and great looking weather again for your Wednesday. A little warmer though, highs lower 70s.